Hey everyone, this is Flix,
This is Pop.
and this is our post Endgame spoiler review. If you want to see the non spoiler review I have beforehand, you can check that one out. But we just, it's 2 days after having watched Endgame, and I'm not gonna be able to hold that up like that the entire time. And we had some debacles as to being able to meet up and do this, but today we're doing it. We're doing it real quick, probably like 10 minutes, real quick. Because for this movie, that would be real quick.
Yeah. And when we get into it, I wore this shirt for a reason.
So, those of you who haven't seen it, go away. Don't watch this video.
Stop. Push stop right now.
Yeah, because this movie is 100% worth seeing without having seen it before. And if you've never seen a Marvel movie before, you have a lot of catching up to do before you watch this movie. Because this movie does require that you've watched some movies before. And if you don't, it's not like someone can stop you from watching it, but if you don't, you're going to miss a lot of the context for this movie and a lot of the emotional feels. Because people I've been talking to about this movie, there's two people. There's people that cried and people that didn't cry. People that didn't cry obviously didn't have a huge connection to the MCU. And that's how exactly I feel. They can say they did, but there's some stuff that happens in this movie that if you did not cry, you did not understand this movie. So, we're going to talk about the plot real quick, go through it. Movie starts with what I believe could have been an Endgame mid-credit scene with Clint Barton.
I felt that was perfect because, it definitely set the tone of what we're going to go through.
It's true, and it gives you a lot more emotional resonance towards Clint during the movie, but at the same time, like it's his family being snapped away.
And what I really enjoyed about them showing his family being snapped away and stuff like that, now it gives more context to Age of Ultron. Because honestly, remember when Age of Ultron came out, like, who cares about his family? You get the starting of Endgame, you're like, I care about his family.
Well, and it's just like I personally was hoping that if people in his family had to go away, it was just going to be his wife and his two boys, and then his daughter was going to be there, and she was going to become the next Hawkeye or whatever. Because that's what they made it seem like they were going towards in the trailer, was that she was going to be someone to take his mantle, which someday she may. But so then we go from that, then we go to the Marvel logo, and then after that we cut to Tony Stark in space with Nebula.
Oh, that made me made some feels there, especially when they're especially Nebula.
They're playing they're playing little paper football, and it's Tony Stark actually connecting with her because he realizes
This could be it.
this could be it.
He could die, and that message to Pepper too. We've seen it in the trailer, but there was a lot more to it because he's trying very hard to joke in the end because he's trying, but you can feel it too. And I heard you in the theater like, oh, because he's trying really hard to be like he's trying to be Tony.
Yeah, he's trying to be Tony to the very end and let her feel like nothing's the matter because he doesn't want to worry her. Then Marvel Ex Machina comes in for not the only time in this movie, but Captain Marvel shows up, pushes their ship to Earth, which, okay. Then we cut to them discussing having gotten their asses kicked. Tony's super sickly tiny, and
But there's a question to that real quick. When he's looking in the glow in his face with Captain Marvel being there. So with the end credit of Captain Marvel, when she shows up and says, "Hey, where's Fury?" Does this take place after that? Like they sent
Yeah.
her to space to go get
No,
Tony?
so
That's what I was gathering.
what I'm thinking it was, and I've heard some small things on this, was I think it was Rocket, because Rocket's on Earth, probably had a way to track the Milano. So they knew that, Thanos, for some reason they knew Thanos came from Titan, and she was just flying between Titan and Earth, or Earth and Titan, and just found them. Like I feel like the more likely thing is that Rocket had a tracker on the ship so he could find it. But yeah, so then she just shows up. But yeah, then Tony and Cap have another falling out.
My goodness, that falling out like hit me hit me hard
Well,
because
it's because it has context to the other ones, you know.
yeah, and
This movie really did bring a lot of Age of Ultron in there because that's the conversation they had was Tony wanted to build the suit of armor around the world, and Cap's just like, that's embedding on people's freedoms and yada yada yada, and so they stop it. And Tony's question was, "What happens if we lose?" He goes, "We'll do that together." But in Infinity War, they lost separately. They didn't lose together.
And he tells him, he's like, "Hey, you promised," And I think that's the biggest thing for Tony is he's gone through a lot, to be losing Peter, to losing the team, just losing in general,
Yep.
and Cap wasn't there for him.
And it's them licking their wounds pretty much, and then Stark doing what Stark does and blaming other people. But he was understandably pissed at this point in time because everybody was. So then Stark has to be put in put sedated, and Nebula and Rocket find out where Thanos is. And this is one of the first 10 minutes of the movie. So they find out where they were because the same power that was used for the snap was found somewhere else in the universe, and they tracked it down.
And they got there, and you got a really burnt up, gauntlet all smashed Thanos cooking dinner.
Yep. And then everyone just comes in there and kicks his ass real quick.
And the best part, I just heard you pop so hard. And after they're like, "Where's the Infinity Stones? Where are they at?" He's like, "Well, you used the snap again." He goes, "Yeah, to destroy them. I did my means, and it nearly killed me."
Yep. And he's such a sore winner.
And
then
I'll let you tell the best part.
Then Thor just takes a shot right and cleaves his head straight off. And then, one of the early best lines in the movie, because there's plenty of great lines in this movie. But Rocket's just like, "What did you do?" And he's just like, "I went for the head." And you're just like, oh. He just walks off, and then title sequence.
Yeah, I gotta say, for this movie, I think the magic of it was the audience.
Oh yeah, see, and that's so again, like I said, we watched this movie 2 days ago. I actually watched it yesterday as well, and I enjoyed it. And I still have the same thoughts on it I did before, but it wasn't as spectacular because the crowd wasn't as much into it. And granted, any showing after the premiere, that's going to be true. Yeah. Because audiences try to be respectful.
And I think it's because we went to the fan event, the $20 a pop,
which depending on where you are in the world, that might not sound like that much, but most of our regular tickets are like $10 here.
Yeah.
So you're paying like double.
And you got a cool coin. You got people there who I felt were invested because everybody participated in the movie, and that was a lot of fun.
No.
And I really enjoyed that aspect because I felt like we were all one in that theater. Every time there was something like, we
got this little Avengers little token from it.
I put my ticket behind it with a little card, so now that will forever be on my wall.
Ellen still has hers in the wrapped up thing. So then we cut to 5 years later.
That blew my mind.
Yeah, well, this is the only time I think that the MCU has ever actually been in the future from our current timeline.
Yeah.
There's that weird thing in Spider-Man Homecoming where the Battle of New York takes place in 2012, then you cut to 4 years later and it's 2016, and that's when Spider-Man Homecoming takes place. But due to Iron Man 2 only taking place 2 years before that, and the little kid supposedly being Peter Parker, doesn't make sense in that context. But it's the first time they're legitimately in the future.
Yeah, and seeing those words on the screen, I don't know why. I was like, what?
They did do it in a really weird way, though, where it was 5 years later. And you're just like, but was there really that much need for the, because if it'd been 5 years later, to me it would have made more sense, but having 5 than years, you've already given away the dramatic part at that point, and then go later.
That reminded me of the credits for Infinity War, because I just watched Infinity War the other night, where it's name. name.
Well, okay, but that's because that was a somber moment.
Yeah,
And
but
that was just the way they
that's
did
what
the
it
credits.
reminded me of personally as a fan.
Either way, we're pretty well into this at this point in time. So, actually, we're not really that far into the movie at all. But no, then it cuts to Captain America doing group therapy with one of the Russos.
That was cool.
You notice that?
Was cool. And there were some people who knew, and some people who didn't. But I was like, "Oh, look, there's Russo."
No, I didn't I realized that was someone special, but I didn't realize till I watched it the second time exactly who it was. So then we cut to him heading back over to Captain America heading back over to the Avengers compound, where Black Widow is like super hardcore overworking herself, is trying to be in charge of everything.
Seeing Black Widow in this aspect of being kind of battle worn, vulnerable, it was really cool. You felt more for her, especially when she just starts crying.
See, and here's the thing to that is like, it's one of those. I feel like in most of the context of the movie, she was the strongest female character in the movie because she showed she doesn't have to be a badass the entire time. She can have vulnerabilities. Because we've seen her just constantly again and again and again be a badass, and the most vulnerable we saw her was in Age of Ultron when she like had a crush on Bruce. Mm-hmm. And it's also because she was having to relive her worst memories. But then we cut to this one and she doesn't know what to do anymore. She's legitimately just trying to save her family.
And the first time I've never seen her hair not perfect.
I know, yeah, it was like red and then a little blonde at the
Just let
end.
it go.
Yeah.
That was crazy, and
But then yeah, her and Steve have a discussion about kind of trying to let go of the past and getting a life, and neither of them really want to. They want to do their best.
They can't. I think
He's just like
Steve said it best because we're telling everybody else to move on. We're trying to tell ourselves, but we can't.
So then Scott shows up. Oh, we missed the part where Scott shows up randomly.
Yeah.
So the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, he's stuck in the quantum realm, and evidently all his stuff got moved to a storage unit, which we'll question that later. And a rat randomly presses the buttons that bring him back.
It was fun, and you felt too where if you woke up, it's 5 years later, and everyone's gone, and he was running around. The little memorial thing was like, oh wow, yeah, this is real. And he's like looking for his daughter's name, and just like no, they found his name, and then he running to his daughter, and she's big now. That
Well, which was a joke though, sort of, if you think about it, because Cassie Lang is the hero stature, who grows really big. So now she's big.
Yeah, she's big, and that touched some heartstrings,
No, and unfortunately that's pretty much the last relevant time you see Cassie in this movie.
Yeah.
I was really hoping they were going to do more with her. But then he shows up at the Avengers compound. They're discussing the fact of using the quantum realm as a time machine, pretty much. So, yeah. And so then they go to talk to Tony Stark, who is now a father.
Oh, man. I thought a goose or something like not a child was going to come out of that little area.
That would have been hilarious if it had been Goose. He'd be like, yep, I'm going to find you something to eat. Just don't look at me that way.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, he's a father now. And it was like, all right, okay, this adds a more emotional context for this.
Mm-hmm. And it makes it so you realize that if they actually went back in time and altered everything, he'd lose something. So he had something definitely to lose. And then the first time you see her, it's adorable because she has a helmet on, one of the Iron Man helmets on, but it's one that he's making for Pepper. So it gives a little. She never wears anything I buy her. But it gives a little surprise as to the thought of maybe rescue coming in. And then, everybody meets up with him. They're talking about the time travel stuff. And the real reason behind that shirt is Scott's rules of time travel are...
Are you basing everything off of Back to the Future, Tony says?
Yeah, because he's like, no talking to your former self and no betting on sporting events. Yeah. And Tony's like, let me stop you right there. Are you basing this on Back to the Future?
And he's like, no.
He's like, okay. You had me worried there for a second. But Tony pretty much flat out refuses to help because he has a lot to lose now. And he's finally gotten a life, so he refuses to do it. They tell him about the idea of what they have, but he just refuses. So they're looking for the next smartest person.
And we finally got Smart
We
Hulk.
got Professor Hulk.
Yeah, that made me so happy.
It's really funny. Like, you first meet them at a diner where he's just like chomping on this giant plate of food.
Dressed, he goes, "Hey, look, I got a shirt."
Kids take a picture with him, and then Ant-Man's there, and he's like, "You want to take a picture with me? I'm Ant-Man."
Hey, man. Oh,
And they
just that moment of like, hey, yeah, take a picture with him. He's like, nah, just take your damn phone.
The Hulk's trying to be real nice to him. He's just like, "Yeah, no, take a picture with him." He's like, "No, no, it's fine. I don't want your pity photo. Just go."
I don't want your.
So he explains that that's not really something that he knows how to do, but they're going to try it anyway. And then we cut back to Iron Man, who pretty much figures out the problem of time travel.
Yeah.
And then you get this big emotional scene between him and Pepper where he's just like, "I should just throw this in the bottom of the lake." And she's like, "But would you be able to rest?"
Yeah, and that's an important line. That is a very important line, and he can't. And especially when he like figures out how he's like, "Oh my goodness," and he's like, "What should I do?" And,
Well, pretty much ever since the first Iron Man, when he met Jensen, he's not been able to stop helping people. Mm-hmm. Like that's been his goal. So then we cut to them time traveling testing with Scott.
Oh yeah, then the time travel Professor Bruce was trying to bring him back and sent him back, brought him back as a
Child, just a child.
Then brought him back as an old man.
Then brought him back as a baby.
Then brought him back as a baby.
And then finally brought him back as him. Makes a joke about having peed his pants, and he's just like
he doesn't know which one it is.
I don't know which one it was me. It was baby me. Was it old me? Was it me? So then Stark shows up, and is just like, he knows exactly what was going on.
Yeah, he goes, "Did he turn into a baby?" And Steve's like,
among other things. So then Iron Man gives Cap back his shield, and they figure out how to do it. But they got to get the team back together. So Black Widow goes searching for
Ronan.
Hawkeye. For Hawkeye, who's now Ronan, just killing bad guys all over the place. She finds him. They have this really good connection between each other, where she's just like, "There's a chance." And he's like, "Don't
give me
hope." And she's like, "I'm just sorry I didn't give it to you sooner." And you're just like, "Oh."
Yeah. Then we'll get to that. And then Bruce and Rocket go after Thor.
Which is now in new Asgard, which is about right where Odin said Asgard could be in Thor Ragnarok. This is a lot of those, you need to have watched the previous movie to kind of get context to these sort of things.
And the best part about this is the best surprise of this movie was how we find Thor and the way his status in this movie.
Just say it, dude. Where it's spoilers, dude.
He's drunk. He's fat. He looks like the dude.
He does. Well, there's a Lebowski joke in there. A couple of them, actually, I think.
I love when Rocket tells him, because you look like a melted ice cream cone.
So they get Thor to come with them, not necessarily easily, because he's crushed by his defeat from Thanos. Mm-hmm. Then we cut to... I think the team's together at this point in time.
Yeah, and the Lebowski joke's right there.
When he's walking in, he's drinking a beer, he's got sunglasses on, he's wearing a sweater. Stark just walks by him, and he's just like, "To the left." Or, no, he's like, "To the left, Lebowski."
Yeah.
And then, so they built this quantum tunnel thing. The first person to send back on a test run is
Barton.
Hawkeye. Yeah, Barton. And he goes back to the farm before the snap happens, and he sees his family. And so I guess I should explain sort of the premise of what they're trying to do. They're not just trying to go back in time to stop Thanos. They're actually not trying to go back in time to stop Thanos. Trying to go back in time and collecting all the Infinity Stones from that time
and
when they
trying
existed.
To locate them from their origin point, which was brilliant because it was like, oh, okay, now you can kind of line up. Like, this movie has a lot of like, we're going to level out all the questions you had of where everything was at and pinpointing it to why, when, where, and how where all these stones ended up.
So they're doing a time heist is what they're calling it.
Yeah.
And they're going to try to steal each of the stones from a certain place and bring them back to their time to then undo the snap. Like, do another snap to undo the snap. And so we get teams that are setting out to do it, which it's Rocket and Thor are going to Asgard during the event of Thor: The Dark World to go get the Reality Stone from Jane. Which I gotta say, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. they should have just gone to after that, to when they had the Reality Stone and they were going to give it to the Collector, and just taken it from there.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been as...
It wouldn't have been as entertaining, don't get me wrong, but I'm just
You wouldn't
saying,
have got the mom moment with Thor.
Yeah, you wouldn't have. And that was a very, very good moment.
Very great moment for Thor.
It was needed for Thor.
Yeah.
But then Nebula,
And War Machine.
Black Widow, and Hawkeye are all going to space to go to Vormir, and
We got a Budapest throwback.
we did. That's Natasha and Clint are going to Vormir, and then
War
Machine and Nebula are staying on Morag to stop Peter before he gets the Power Stone, to get the Power Stone first.
Oh, that was great. Mm-hmm. That was really great. When the music's playing and stuff like that, then
So
they kind of cut back.
This is another reason you need to watch like the movies beforehand to get context for some things, is because Peter's just listening to the song on his headphones and he's singing and dancing to it, but you see War Machine and Nebula's perspective of him.
And he's just dancing.
He's just dancing and just
Sounded like an
singing
idiot.
kind of out of tune. And yeah, no, War Machine's like, so he's an idiot.
Just bam.
Well, and then the last team, real quick, before we get into the specific stories of each of them, because we'll probably just give each of the full stories for each of the places instead of going in the order of the movie, because they flip back and forth. The last one is the Battle of New York, because they found out that during that time, Stephen Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, had the Time Stone in New York. That was their thoughts.
Yeah.
So the Time Stone, the Mind Stone, and the Space Stone were all in that place at the same time. So they decide to go there. And that's Iron Man, Hulk, Ant-Man, and Captain America.
Great team.
So we're going to start with sort of the least consequential out of all of them and just talk about the Thor one.
Okay.
Because Thor is... So all the plan for this, the original plan, is Natalie Portman's Jane has the ether in her at that point in time. They're going to go in there. They're going to take it out after Thor distracts and woos her, because they're in love at this point in time.
And I love that aspect of he's doubting himself. Thor is doubting himself.
He completely backs out of it, where he's like, yeah, I think my dad had a cask of ale from a long time ago. I'll see if they have to-go cups. I'll go get that real quick. And Rocket's like, dude, what are you doing?
You're messing up the plan. And he actually does kind of mess up the plan.
He does. Well, and then he sees his mom, and he gets really distracted by that. And Rocket kind of talks him into going along with the plan, and Rocket starts walking off, and Thor just bails.
Yeah. That was like, oh. Because when he slapped him, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a little moment where he's like, come on. Then when he left, I was like, wow, he's that damaged. Mm-hmm. He has to. Then when he saw his mom, that was just even more like...
So then he goes to follow his mom, and she sends all her goddesses away and just surprises Thor, which Thor was hilarious in this movie in sort of a sad way sometimes, but he gives this little girly yelp.
Yeah.
But the mom realizes that it's not the Thor from their time, and she's not put off by it, because she was, she's like, I was raised by witches. I see with more than just eyes.
Yeah.
So they're having a conversation kind of about his failure, and how he really, really doubts himself. And she gives him a big motivational speech. And during this, Rocket steals the ether and is just being chased by every guard in Asgard.
And the question, was that actually Natalie Portman, or was that just a scene?
I think that was a scene cut from the original Dark World, the one where you actually see her in the shot. I think
because there's really no interaction with Jane at all.
Nope, and it doesn't I think
everybody else, when they went back in time, got an interaction, but the Jane was kind of like, well, she's just getting up from bed.
I feel like it's just her likeness was used for part of it and some of her words, and then that scene was just something pre-recorded. But no, then right before Rocket and Thor are about to leave, Thor calls Mjolnir, which was destroyed during Ragnarok. And it comes back to him, and his only thought when he sees this, he's like, I'm still worthy.
And I'm like, oh!
So then they travel back, and so they got the Reality Stone and Mjolnir from that time. Kind of important to later. So why don't you explain New York?
New York. The plan, one of my favorite parts was what was it called? Steve got the stone. Because, Hydra plays into this, because once back context of what happened in Civil War and what happened in the Winter Soldier, it all comes into play here. And when he gets in the elevator, and it's almost shot for shot of him standing in the middle of the elevator, just like in Winter Soldier, and where he's like, okay, and he's like, I got to take the scepter. per.
So real quick to give context to this, this is after the Battle of New York.
Yes.
Sorry, you.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping. I'm just getting excited. It just gets me excited. Just after the Battle of New York, this is after Loki's defeated. Everyone's wrapping up. Shield shows up and stuff like that, and so Steve goes and gets the scepter, and he goes, "Yeah, I came. I was told I'm going to take over. I'll take it out. And this and that." And they're like, "Under whose orders?" I can't think of his name.
Which one? Crossbones?
Not Crossbones. Robert Redford.
Oh, the Secretary of State.
Yeah, Secretary of State's I'm gonna take it over, but they're like, well, I'm gonna call this in. He goes, no, hold on, and he just goes right by his ears like, Hell Hydra.
Dude, that was one of the biggest uproars in the theater of just applause, because then he's just like, oh, okay, and they hand him the scepter,
and he just walks out and just slowly, just like
smiling as big as he can.
And I think that was a lot for comic book fans, especially the big controversy behind that and the comic books. And Tony and Ant-Man are off to go get
The Tesseract.
The Tesseract, and their plan fails miserably, which was great because it just shows Tony's not as perfect as he once was when creating a plan. So they go down. They got Loki. They're in an elevator, and beforehand, this is one of my favorite parts too, is when Hulk was going to get on the elevator with him, and no way, there's a weight restriction here. You're taking the stairs, and Hulk's like, I hate stairs.
So the reason the plan fails though is because the Hulk takes the stairs.
Because he takes the stairs. So the plan is to have Tony dressed up as
just a SWAT guy.
And then Ant-Man's gonna go shrink himself, give past Tony's self. This movie's much more fresh in your mind than it is mine, but give past Tony a little bit of a heart attack. Yeah. So plan, boom, takes it out. Tony falls. There goes the case with the Tesseract, and Tony grabs it. Plan good. Right by, and he walks by the door of the stairs. Bam! Here comes Hulk, and Hulk's like, I hate stairs. Tesseract flies, and
lands right next to Loki.
That's to Loki. Loki's just like, oh, okay. Poof! Loki. So plan is done.
Yeah.
So then
you're missing the third part of New York.
The third part of New York.
The Time Stone.
Oh, the Time Stone. Yes. There's a lot of stones in this.
Stoner's Dream.
The Stoner's Dream. Hulk is sent off to the Ancient One to get the Time Stone. And he's pleading with her. She knocks him out of the Hulk body so she can talk to Bruce and not talk to the Beast / Bruce.
Well, also not worry about him trying to crush her.
Yeah. I don't think he would have.
Well, no, but he was going to fight her, and she didn't want to actually have a fight.
Yeah, and then he's like pleading. He's just like, come on, And then she's like telling him, and she's like, well, okay, look, here's all the stones. You take one, and the time stream goes off this way, this and that. Then Bruce is like, wait, hey, what if we bring back the stones at this exact time, and then everything will be okay? And then she's just like, well, I don't know about that. She goes, but Strange gave Thanos the time stone. Then she stops, and she's like, he did what?
Like, willingly?
Yeah, and she was just like, well, he is the greatest Sorcerer Supreme that's coming, so there's a reason why he did it. Hence, back to Infinity War, when he's like, we have one shot, and it's all, and that was a beautiful moment, too, because of her commitment to Doctor Strange. Her commitment to Doctor Strange, knowing he's going to be the greatest Sorcerer Supreme. So that's how she gave the Time Stone to Bruce.
Well, it also gives context to why he willingly gave it to Thanos, because now it actually has a purpose to having willingly been given to him, as opposed to just, hey, he took the Time Stone. Because, if it had just been taken from him, she would have been like, well, I have no reason to give it to you. But because he gave it to him, Bruce saying that is, kind of what saves the future. So the Battle of New York, 2 out of 3 of them, they succeeded. Third one, however, the Tesseract, they realized, because another little underlying little bit of tension to this movie is that they don't have Pym particles enough to constantly travel back and forth. So they figure out they got to go somewhere that has Pym particles and the Tesseract in another time to get it back. So they go to a military base in the 1970s in New Jersey, which is the one from The Winter Soldier.
Great context there, because you kind of got some things wrapped up in that whole getting the Tesseract, getting the Hank Pym particles, having some closure with Tony and his dad, I thought they were gonna have closure right there with Peggy, but I'm
Okay.
glad they didn't.
Yeah, no, they definitely didn't. So they get the Tesseract, they get the Pym particles. Tony does get a brief interaction with his dad, and they go back to their time. Now, the most important one and bit of the stupidest one is what happens with War Machine and Nebula. So Nebula is mostly robotic, and her just being in that time evidently links her up to the other Nebula of that time. So they start seeing things. So Thanos of that time, the one from 2014, sees that there's another Nebula.
Oh my goodness, this you talk about tension.
Yeah. So they figure out, well, they must have come from the future, and they're reading through the new the future Nebula's memory banks, sees that Thanos succeeds, sees that he gets killed, and sees that they're trying to get all the stones to undo what he did.
Got goosebumps when Thanos goes, "Play me everything," and I'm like,
He loses his head. Then they like, so War Machine, Nebula, they knock out Peter, they get the Power Stone.
War Machine goes back.
Yeah, War Machine goes back. She's about to, and she gets like frozen in place, realizing that she's been compromised. She tries to go to the ship and warn Natasha and Clint, but then she just gets picked up. She gets beaten the crud out by Nebula. Nebula takes the only distinguishing factor between the two of them, which is like a like a copper faceplate and little
Copper
under thing.
orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they take that, and she's the one that goes back to the present. Well, I guess our future, technically.
Yeah.
But then you get to Natasha.
Switch and bait.
You get to Natasha and Clint on Voromir, and then you have, like, I think the second giant emotional scene in the movie.
You know, and that could have gone either way. That's how much that tension was. Like,
Well, and it's how much both of them meant to each other, and how much, like, each of them have a path they could have taken. So, if you remember from Infinity War, someone has to die. The thing you care about most has to be given up to get the Soul Stone.
for soul.
Soul for soul. So, Natasha and Clint are kind of having a conversation about it, and they both are willing to sacrifice themselves for the other. So they start kicking each other's ass.
Mm-hmm.
They each try to go jump off and sacrifice himself, and finally Clint jumps off the edge of the cliff, and then Natasha just jumps right after him, grabs him, hooks up her grappling hook to him, and fires it into the wall, and they're both stuck there. And she's not being held on by anything but Clint.
And she's just like,
let me go.
let me go. And that by far tore me up inside, because growing up, with these past 11 years with this character, and knowing that this is it for her, it was big.
Because they also make a distinguishment that they didn't in the first Infinity Wars, which is the sacrifice for the Soul Stone is permanent. The Soul Stone itself can't undo that. So they can't bring back Natasha, which also says they can't bring back Gamora, but those stones are gone anyway. So he has the Soul Stone, and they all travel back, and everyone's just like, where's Natasha?
And that just emotions galore. Then they show him by the lake, and
They have their moment of mourning. They're talking to each other about it. Thor gets really pissed off. He's like, why are you talking like she's gone? Like, we have the Soul Stone now. We have all of the stones. Why don't we bring her back? And they're like,
dude, no.
we can't.
You can't. And that was the driving force, which I think was brilliant too with Gamora. But we'll get into that as we get...
Which also another thing to mention from the past, when Nebula's beating the crud out of herself and takes her own stuff, Gamora's there as well, and Nebula's just like, do you want to know, our Nebula, I'll call her, is like, do you want to know what Thanos did to get the Soul Stone in our time? So that kind of plays into later. Tony builds a gauntlet that can hold the stones, and they're just trying to figure out who
can wield it. Thor was like, I'll do it, but they're like, dude, you've had a little bit too much to drink, and you're not in the right emotional state.
Well, it's all like it's just like he really, really wants to redeem himself. He wants to come back for his failures.
And then plays into Hulk saying, I'm the only one. And they bring up gamma radiation, which made me really happy too, because I haven't heard that, about that with Hulk in a while.
Yeah, the last time I think was in the first Avengers.
First Avengers.
We're talking about the Tesseract giving out small amounts of gamma radiation.
Yeah, so really big throwback to that.
Yeah, so he does the snap, but it like wrecks him, which I thought was so weird, because when Thanos did the snap, it hurt the gauntlet, and his hand a little bit, but it wasn't like the level of him destroying the stones how bad it hurt him.
Well, plus you got to think of the weapon that was made
Yeah.
for him to hold that energy.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that like the key difference in it is that what's his name, Dimitri, the dwarf, he built the gauntlet
to keep the power.
The power, and where Stark built it probably without the same level of intelligence. Let's say
Wrexham, snap.
You get a phone call from Clint's wife.
Oh man! As soon as I heard that phone, I was like, "Is everyone back? Or is this just like?"
And then during the same time, Nebula opens the gate to let Thanos into that time.
And by this moment, I did not know we were over. Like
over 2 hours at this point in time.
I did not know that.
It did not feel like this movie just flies by. This movie's 3 hours 4 minutes. It feels like an hour.
Yeah, because that's how intense everything is. Mm-hmm. So ship comes through, and Thanos is there, and all of a sudden,
they just start raining down fire.
Oh man!
They wreck the Avengers compound.
And then you go in, you see like Clint, he's by the gauntlet. You see, when you see Rocket with the
thing on his chest.
I can't breathe, and you see War Machine getting out of his suit to try to get up, and the team is wrecked and floored at this point.
Yep. Hulk is just holding up the rest of the Avengers compound that's on top of him, just with one arm because he can't use the arm that he snapped with.
Yeah. I love when Tony wakes up Steve, and he's like, "Hey, if you lose this again, I'm gonna keep it."
Yeah. So he gives Steve back his shield. Which I don't actually know how he got that back in the first place, but we'll figure that out later. And so Thanos beams down. Nebula approaches him. He's like, they didn't suspect anything. She's like, well, go get the gauntlet. She's like, what are you gonna do? He's like, I'm gonna wait.
Yeah.
He's like,
I'm just gonna sit right here on my stoop and wait.
So he's just sitting there. Nebula's going to look for it. You get a bunch of the creatures from Infinity War searching through the tunnels for Clint.
Yeah, and him being a badass.
Him being Ronin is actually really awesome because he's like using a sword to chop him down.
Yeah.
Then Nebula.
Nebula versus Nebula.
Nebula versus Nebula and Gamora. So our Nebula versus the past Nebula with Gamora on our Nebula side. Gamora puts her gun down. She's about to be shot by Nebula, and then our Nebula shoots her and just kills her because she's just like, I gotta save my sister.
Yeah.
Like, that's how far they've come. So then Hawkeye runs off with the gauntlet. Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America see Thanos down there. And they're like, let's go fight him. It's a trap, but let's go fight him.
Yeah, and they don't care.
They don't care.
We need to defeat Thanos. And Thor finally, but he was still fat, which made me happy because I was like, yeah, don't take that aspect. Don't make it look like, just because I channel the God of Thunder, I can automatically shed pounds and stuff like that.
He summons both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, so he's dual wielding and jumps down there, and they have, I think, probably the best superhero fight of all time.
Yeah.
The fight takes like 20 minutes of just non-stop badassery, and each of them are fighting to their strengths. Like, there's a really cool team-up scene where where Iron Man opens his back sort of like exhaust area. Thor just channels Mjolnir and Stormbreaker right into it, just blast the crap out of Thanos for a sec.
And during this time, Scott is going after to help War Machine and Rocket.
And the Hulk, who are trapped underneath everything.
Yeah,
so then Iron Man gets knocked out. Friday's trying to wake him up. Nothing's working. Thor is then just getting the crud kicked out of him. And then like he's using Stormbreaker, and Thanos takes it and is about to put it right through his chest, and suddenly Mjolnir just flies out of nowhere, just hits Thanos and almost takes him out. And you see Mjolnir stop and go flying back. And it doesn't go to Thor. It goes to Captain America.
That room popped so big.
That was the biggest cheer of the entire movie.
Oh my! I remember jumping out like, yes!
I'm getting tingles thinking about it.
Yeah, then Thor like,
I knew it. Like Thor was the best, where he's just like, I knew it. So then like Shield and hammer just starts beating the crud out of Thanos, like summoning lightning from the sky, shooting it through him.
Throwing the shield, hitting the shield, and all these really cool combinations, like bam, 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 bam.
It's like when he throws the shield and throws the hammer off the shield, which creates like that giant ring.
Yeah.
Which knocks down Thanos from behind, and then he summons it back and just starts beating him up. But then Thanos just crushes him into the ground, starts smacking and smacking and smacking with his amazingly powerful blade.
I was like, this can't be it. This can't, like, especially when the shield's just being cut like paper. Like paper gets down to nothing. And I'm like, this can't be it. Oh my goodness. Oh,
So then Thor's just beaten to the ground, and Thanos is being a little arrogant about it, where he's just like, it's never been personal against any planet, but I'll let you know what I'm about to do to your planet, I'm really going to enjoy. And so he summons just all of his armies, including like the Black Order, which were destroyed in the last movie, but timelines. So there's just this giant thing against him, and then you just hear Sam.
You see Steve get up,
Titan.
hand shaking.
Well, he's got a giant cut across his arm too. That's like right where he puts the strap over to hold his arm together.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're
Cap, is that you? On your left, which is like the Winter Soldier line that constantly happens. Like on your left, and you look back and you see one of Stephen Strange's portals appear, or one of the Sorcerer's portals appear, and Chitala, Okoye, and Shiri walk out of it, and you're just like, oh my gosh,
it's just got real.
And then like more and more, well, and Falcon flies out of it too, and then more and more portals just start opening everywhere behind them, and everyone that we've been introduced to comes out of those portals.
Valkyrie.
Yeah, you get Valkyrie and the Asgardians. You get the Ravengers, which was weird. I didn't really expect that to happen.
I was fine with that.
You get more of the Sorcerers. You get Wong.
Spider-Man.
You get all of the Guardians back. Spider-Man, Strange. And then Steven's just like, is this all? And Wong's just like, you want more?
And finally, after years and years of waiting, we finally got Steve to say, Avengers, assemble.
That was the second biggest pop in the theater. And then they just go charging, and you have this giant battle. And it's one of those, most giant battles in movies have 1, 2, maybe 5 characters you care about, and the rest are just fodder, unfortunately. But this one, you knew almost everybody on their side, and you cared.
And the Russo brothers in this battle did something where everyone got to shine. Everybody. Unheard of in my mind. Like, I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fans at all, so this is why I said it's 10 times better than all those battles combined, because I cared so much about.
I was gonna say, and see, with Lord of the Rings, it's a bunch of people you don't know. Like, it's like even in the movies, it's just a bunch of CGI armies being smacked together.
Yeah.
But with this one, like, you see Ant-Man come running through. You see the Valkyrie. Like, don't get me wrong.
Giant Man.
Yeah, Giant Man. There's still the Wakandan army, and there's still some of the sorcerers that we don't know. But you just see everyone coming together. And so during the middle of this fight, Hawkeye's running through the battlefield with the Infinity Gauntlet. He's like, Cap, what do you want me to do with this?
Great sequence coming up with the gauntlet being pawned off to everybody.
Chitala gets it next and just running through and whipping everyone's butt as it's going on till Thanos beats him. And then like the gauntlet's going away. Ebony Maw almost gets it. Then Spider-Man like swings through and starts getting it. And he's just meeting everybody as the battle's going on.
Kill mode.
Yeah, he uses instant kill mode finally, and it turns out instant kill mode is not a web slinger variety. It is the little spikes out of his back pop out and just start murdering everything around him. Till Scarlet Witch shows up to save Peter from Thanos.
Oh my goodness, and just her line, she says, "You took everything from me."
He's like, "I don't even know who you are." She's like, "You will."
Oh man, it just bam! And I was like, "We got Scarlet Witch."
Well, and then she just starts beating the ever-loving crud out of him to the point.
I'm sorry.
No, you go.
I got excited. To where he's just like, hey, shoot.
Yeah, he has the ship to start firing on everyone. Oh, okay, so minor part of when the battle began. Sorry, back to this. This is one of my favorite parts of like the full-on battle, is when you see the Leviathan coming in and Ant-Man just punches it in the face.
Yeah.
He's like, oh!
Just
But no, back to it. He just starts having it rain fire down, and it's going down and going down and going down, and like that's the only thing that beats Scarlet Witch out of this fight. She just gets knocked out of the way.
Yeah.
So then you have everybody still fighting their best to defend everything, and then all of a sudden the guns just stop, and they start pointing up at the sky and just start firing, and Tony's just like, what is it? And she's like, something just entered the Friday's like, something just entered the atmosphere. And you see Captain Marvel come in and just destroy the Dark Aster. Just tear right through it. Which, it's so funny. I didn't like Captain Marvel that much in this movie compared to many of the other characters. And if we're talking about female characters. Even if we're talking about female characters, Scarlet Witch and Black Widow were stronger female characters in this movie than her, I felt.
I felt it was necessarily... It was necessary because I heard someone say it best. Like they were glad that Captain Marvel wasn't a big part of the movie because
she wasn't really part of it to this point.
Yeah,
right? Anyway.
Because it was important to the point of being like, okay, cool. We're not being like, oh, she's the one that's gonna solve everything. No, we still need to establish Thor, Iron Man, and Cap. And having that moment with them. But she's the future. She's going to take over the MCU, but so I like the way they used her in this movie. It was just a little bit like, here you go.
So then she's the one that gets the Infinity Gauntlet, and they decide because the thing that sent into the Quantum Realm before was destroyed, they're just going to use the normal Quantum Realm. So Captain Marvel's about to fly in there, Thanos throws... No, so she has the gauntlet, and sorry, I didn't want to miss this important moment, is that she had the gauntlet, and Peter's like, I don't know how you're going to get past the army. And then every female character shows up.
Yeah.
So, my problem with this... Why was Mantis there? When have we ever seen Mantis fight before?
I don't care.
No, but that's a problem, though. Like, I get that they don't want to leave people out, but they had Gamora, Nebula. That makes sense. They had Hope. Kind of makes sense. She was supposed to be fixing the...
Well, this was the
Quantum Realm thing.
I think this was more for... Everyone was asking for the team-up movie. They wanted, that was a rumor, which I don't think is going to happen, but they wanted the full female TV movie, and those were all the women that took that one picture, and then it became a meme. Someone drew them all together as their characters and as the actors themselves. I think for Russo Brothers, like, you know what? Let's give them that.
But it doesn't okay. So that's cool, but in the context of this movie, most of these people have never met each other before. Which is my sort of only thought on it. And it could have been all of the guy characters, and if they'd never met each other, it wouldn't have made sense. Like if Peter was fighting with T'Challa, that wouldn't make sense. As far as like, let's have this team up, and he'd just be like, why are you dressed up like a cat? I'm going to edit that out. So no, she's about to go through the gate. Sword gets thrown and it explodes. She can't go in there. She has to fight Thanos. Thanos, with the gauntlet on, goes to hit her. She just stops it. He goes to headbutt her. It hurts him.
Oh, man, just...
But then what he does to beat her, though, is he takes out of the Infinity, or out of the gauntlet, he takes the Power Stone in one hand and just punches her.
And she
just goes flying. So then Tony is confronting Thanos. And he knows he has to stop him. And he even looks over at Steven, and Steven makes like one. Like, this is the one timeline that it works. And Tony just jumps at Thanos, and he grabs the gauntlet. It doesn't seem to work because Thanos just throws him away, and Thanos just gets up, and and nothing happens.
And he's like...
He looks at the back of the gauntlet. All of the gems are gone. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna read this. Okay. So Tony jumps on him. He grabs the gauntlet, and he gets thrown off. But he didn't get the gauntlet with him since Thanos is still wearing the gauntlet. He puts it on, and he's just like, I am inevitable. And nothing happens. And he looks at the back, and like, there's no stones. And it just cuts over to Tony, whose suit is like integrating the stones into it. And he just looks, he goes, I am Iron Man. And just snaps.
That's his last line.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No, unfortunately. I wanted it to be his last line, but he snaps, and it wipes out all of Thanos' army. But then he's dying there, and he talks to Pepper. He does.
Okay. I honestly assumed in my head that was the last. Maybe that was like the only line that I wanted.
That's why I wanted it to be the last line too. But War Machine's over there with him. Peter's there, and then Potts, which we forgot to mention, she shows up as rescue. Like, she's really badass in the fight too.
Yeah.
But she puts her hand on his chest, and she's like, Friday, and she's like, vital signs critical. Like, so he wasn't coming, and he dies. He says goodbye, and he passes, and...
Well, the part that got me that, like I'm thinking about it right now, that's still, like, was when she looks up, she goes, we're gonna be okay. Him and his daughter, she's saying, we're gonna be okay.
That's not what she was saying.
No?
She was saying the world's gonna be
No,
okay.
I got it more or less. The line I got from it was her and his family, and them telling them, we're gonna be okay, and you can rest. See, that was the one part I was like, oh my goodness.
See, how I got it was because she knows that if he didn't save the world, he couldn't rest. Was the conversation they had earlier. That's why he wanted to be with his family. He wanted to be. He's like, but if you put aside the world for yourself, would you be able to rest? So he saved the world, and she's like, now you can rest. That's how I got
it in a different context in my mind.
Either way, we both understood it in our own way, and we both felt emotionally drained from it. Then we cut to later. He's having a funeral. He has a lovely little message left for all of them, which is kind of a callback to the beginning of the movie when he was leaving messages in case something happened. We have his funeral where they put the original arc reactor he had on a little wreath and let it float in the water away.
So much callback in this movie that was brilliant.
Mm-hmm. No, it's one of those, you will not get the fullness of this movie if you don't watch all the other movies before.
And I gotta say, with the Russo brothers, when and it's going off on the water, the most beautiful shot coming up the hill, showing everybody,
even the kid from Iron Man 3, which is a little weird.
Yeah, showing everybody, like, here they are, and then ending it with
Nick,
because, like, this is where it all started, him and Tony, and Tim telling him about the Avengers Initiative, and just it was beautiful.
I will say one person that was a little out of place in that was Thunderbolt Ross, because Hulk's there. And I don't feel like that's a good combination to have that. But either way. So then Hulk, Bucky, Falcon, and Steve are, they know they have to put all the gems back in the right place. And Steve's the one that's going to go do it, because they got to put Mjolnir back too, and he's the only one that can hold Mjolnir besides Thor. So Sam's just like, you want me to go with you, Cap? And he's just like, no, I got this one on my own.
Yeah.
So, Sam's just like, well, how long is it going to take? And Hulk's just like, however long it takes for him, but 5 seconds for us. Him and Bucky have a really nice conversation. Calling back to Captain America, the first Avenger, where he's just like, don't do anything stupid while I'm gone.
Yeah.
How can I? You're taking all the stupid with you. And I'm just like, something's going to happen here. So then he goes on the portal thing and teleports away.
Hulk counts down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Click.
Nothing happens.
Nothing.
Sam's just like, do it again. And Bucky just looks over and he's like, hey, Sam. And they just look over and they see this person sitting on this bench. And Bucky and Sam are standing there for a second, and Bucky's just like, go. Walks up. Turns out Steve didn't use the means to return back. He stayed.
He got a life. And he even mentions he finally got a life that Tony told me I needed to get. And
and Sam's just like, I'm going to be sad to live in a world without Captain America. And then Steve's just like, you don't have to. And he's got a little thing with him. He pulls it over, opens it. It's got the shield inside of it. And he hands it to Sam. And he's like, how does it feel? And Sam's like it belongs to somebody else. He goes, it doesn't. And you're just like, come on! And like he looks back at Bucky, and Bucky just gives like a nod.
Right there, quick note. As a comic book nerd, that meant so much to me, because the Sam as Captain is one of my favorite Captain America runs in the whole world, because it deals with the conflict of him being black and dealing with the struggle of it and this and that. And then as a comic book fan too, seeing Bucky give the nod, because Bucky becomes Captain before Sam does. But I felt that was a homage of like Bucky saying like, you take it. And as a comic book fan, I'm like dying inside, because I'm like,
So then Falcon goes to shake his hand. You see that there's a ring on Steve's finger. And Sam's just like, you want to tell me about her? And he just looks at her and goes, no, I don't think I will. And then it cuts to back to some slow music playing. And
Shot slowly creeping towards the window.
in this suburban house. And inside you just see Peggy and Steve dancing.
Finally getting that dance.
Young Peggy and young Steve dancing. And that was my wife. That was the point in which she lost it. She started crying real hard during that. And then that was the end.
You talk about one of the finest. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. The finest cherries on top of ending a movie, right there, giving Steve what he wanted.
Giving Steve his happy ending. The thing he didn't think he was going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's no mid-credit, no end-credit scene, and I think that was great.
That's brilliant.
We
don't need to know.
We definitely don't need to know about Spider-Man Far From Home at this point in time.
Yeah,
we don't care at this point.
And the Russo brothers made it so emotional with the credits because they're like, here's everybody. Then they
start showing them through. Everyone except for the original Avengers just gets a little like video of when they're in the movie, like really small, like in the background, kind of faded out with their names coming over it, and then
the final six,
and like. It's them standing there with just the actor's signature over them.
Name and just...
Mm-hmm. For every single person. The last one, as it should be, was Iron Man.
Signing off. Saying goodbye.
And so some people were a little annoyed that there was no end credit scene, but they did give us something at the end credits. The last noise you hear from this saga is the sound of Iron Man working on the first Iron Man suit. You just hear the metal clanging as he's hammering it. So, this took a lot longer than we thought it was going to.
You're like 10 minutes.
I know. I'm such a doof for that. But, so, what was your score?
Perfect 10.
I don't do this ever, but I actually completely agree with that.
Can I tell you that quick story? I had a beautiful moment with this gentleman right here. We've been going to movies for a long time, and
let's give context to this though about Infinity War.
Yes, it is. He's very critical. It's very critical.
If you watch the actual show that we do on Pop Flix, you'll kind of see that.
And every moment, I always turn to him, and when I see him. Stern face or just
which is like 90% of the movies we watch.
90% of the movies, and I going back to a conversation we had with Infinity War, he's like 9.5 out of 10 because there's no such thing as a perfect movie. So cut back to now. I'm sitting there, I'm like, and he references that conversation. He goes, I was proven wrong, and we both had our little moment right there together. Yeah. Just it that's how beautiful this movie is.
See, and it was a little with the crowd that was there, which, we had the annoying person behind us, but that didn't really do much to deter us from it. But the movie, the crowd, like Cody, one of the people that we went to see it with, said it right. It wasn't a movie. It was an experience. Mm-hmm. Like, we didn't go and watch Endgame. We went and experienced the final bit of the Infinity Saga that was so well earned and so well executed.
Beyond. Just so perfect 10 for me. It has to be, and I'm not saying that out of like I love Marvel that much. This movie is that. And if you don't experience it the way we did,
so here's the thing to it too, is there are questions I have that aren't answered in this movie, and and in that context, no movie always 100% makes sense on everything. Mm-hmm. Life has weird anomalies to it, and even writing has that. But that doesn't mean I dislike the movie any lesser for these things. So I will be doing a 15 questions for that, just so you know. Giving a 10 out of 10 on a movie and still having questions about it is kind of crazy for me. But it's one of those, this movie was great. How they handled things were great. Are there still questions about what some things could have been and what happened? Yeah. And funny thing real quick, we're going to cut this off in the next 30 seconds, but think about this. When Captain Rogers was returning all of the stones, he had to go to Vormir and talk to the Red Skull. Well,
That would have been a good deleted scene, just punching him,
Yeah, just punching him in the face again and
throwing
again.
the stuff.
But regardless, thank you guys for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our review / plot synopsis.
Wow, it took longer than we thought.
Yeah, it took an hour, but you guys have a great day, and tell you all stay sexy, right?
Oh, stay sexy, ninjas.